Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Focused on Infinity podcast. Today we're doing something a little new and different, and we have a guest with us. Someone who has not been on before, but is a long-time friend and excellent human, named Paul Hoppe. He is a master Tae Kwon Do person and a master poker person as well. He is skilled in many means of contending and also a master guitarist, even though I'm not sure there is a classification for such, but if there were one, he would be given it. So, hello, Paul. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Logan, and everybody out in the listening and viewing world. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're quite welcome. So let's just start with, tell us a little bit about the things that what are you doing most right now?
Staying at home. A lot of that.
That's a good bet right now.
While staying at home, I play a lot of poker on various, at-home platforms, and doing a little bit of podcasting here and there, and doing a little bit of Twitchcraft streaming, like mostly chess, some poker, some language learning type stuff, and overall just kind of, hunkering down while the world is, how it is.
Properly aflame, yes.
Yes.
And tell us about your experience and or exploits with martial arts, in brief, of course, since that's a much longer topic.
Right. The brief story. I guess, I started as a kid, and then I stopped for a little while. Then I started as a teenager, then I stopped for a little while. Then when I was 20, I really started doing a lot of Tae Kwon Do at a school in Times Square. And then a few years later, my teacher went and opened a school on the Upper West Side. Sorry, I don't know why I said East. And then I took over the school in Times Square and ran it for a couple years, where Logan was a student. And, we had some good times, some not as good times. And
no one actually went out the window, so I think we came out of it okay.
No one went all the way through the window. I may have kicked someone through the window and pulled them back in.
Right, he did.
Yeah.
Right.
It was.
He did go out the window.
They were eventful days. Yeah, I mean, things could have gone worse, right? And
that's fair.
And then I stopped for a little while again and kind of traveled the world for a little while to play online poker, and then came back and taught some more. And then about, maybe 5 to 6 years ago, I moved to New Jersey and just stopped practicing as much, and rapidly gained weight and lost flexibility. But still do a little kicking and punching here and there, but not nearly as much.
I understand that struggle very well. Yes, the flexibility thing. No one tells you. You gotta just keep doing it, or your muscles will just lock up. And once you hit 40, they're gonna lock up anyway. So you have to do like twice as much to get half as far.
Yeah, and it's hard having. Tae Kwon Do is not the only thing that I did a lot of. I practiced 6 hours a day or 6. Yeah, I meant to say 6 days a week, but then I was like, well, it was really more like 7 days a week a lot of the times. And I was teaching or practicing just all day long for years.
Yeah.
And then went to not doing it much. But then every time I would come back to it, there's this this is how good I was. These are the things I'm capable of. Let me try. Oh, no, not that yet.
That's not happening anymore.
Right? I think that's true with any skill, that it's hard to come back to. But then once you do, you've got to kind of take it a little easy and then kind of build back up.
Right. Okay.
Somewhat gradually.
And tell us about you've talked about martial arts, talked about poker. Talk to us a little bit about music.
Yeah, so I started playing guitar as a teenager, and kind of put the same sort of passion for improvement, for developing a skill into it. And when I'd been playing for maybe 6 months, I just like took one 13-second bit and like practiced it 8 hours a day for 2 weeks until my fingers bled, and then I was a much better guitar player. But it's also
Huh.
something I came to and left, and came to and left. And you and I were in how many bands? There was Shelf Life briefly together,
Right.
and then again individually, and then Viscera, and then I think I played with a friend on the West Coast for a while, and then came back to the East Coast, and we had Voice of a Secret, and then I kind of started doing more martial arts, and then we did Villain's Lament, and I think that was about the last serious musical endeavor that I've engaged in.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Okay, and tell us about the style of music you like to play best.
I like thrash. Like I like to play fast and loud, but also, I mean, something about like thrash metal that always really appealed to me was, the changes. Was you've got some irregular time signatures, but also just you've got large dynamic changes. And so, the stuff that we were always working on, I liked to try to have, some quiet parts and some loud parts, some slow parts, some fast parts,
Yeah.
and really melody, like a strong melodic component, and like, a minor sixth, just like always a minor sixth,
Oh,
right?
well, you got to have those. I mean, otherwise it's not music.
Exactly.
So let's talk about shifting gears entirely away from the personal. Now, guess who's on the Supreme Court?
Yeah. What's the Supreme Court? And yeah, I have thoughts. It it feels kind of surreal that it's just like, oh, well, that just happened. Like, how is that just that easy? Like,
Yeah.
what, Obama appoints Merrick Garland, and it's like, no, we're just gonna come up with this reason that like is bullshit, right? About like, well, the next president, the election should determine who gets to decide who's on the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, after we fill that seat and another seat, now we're just going to be like, yeah, we're just going to push this through. It just there's a point to which I feel like the Republican Party's principal goal is to undermine the um, what's the word? Like the legitimacy of the
Of
U.S. federal
government
government,
itself. Yes. I
right?
mean,
Of government itself.
I'm
Yes.
100%.
And
I mean,
especially,
that seems to be their, I mean, it's almost their stated goal, right?
yeah,
Because,
yeah, no, it is. It is.
um,
Right.
and they have been extremely, extremely effective at doing so. I mean, that's like what they do, and that's why I always say that Trump is not a departure from the Republican Party.
Yeah.
He is, I mean, it's like he's its apex, and he's it laid completely bare, right? And I mean,
Yeah.
now him personally, right? A lot of people are like, well, Trump and Biden are the same, blah blah blah, and I'm like, no. They are both dangerous because all presidents are hideously dangerous because the
Yeah.
American instrument is an instrument of death and torture, right? But Biden is dangerous just because he would be a president, right? And because he has,
Hmm.
and because he's American. Americans, by and large, have regressive views about important things. We are all learning. One of the other good things, I mean, if there can be said to be any good things about Trump, is that he has laid bare that, like, when people say America, right? When he says make America great again or keep America great or any shit like that, like he's talking about an America that we don't want.
Yeah.
But the one that we want is one that never actually existed. And
Yeah.
that's like, that's something that we just got to get over it. We got to get out of our heads that, like, the idea of America is like the shining city on the hill and whatever, like that was all a lie. That was a lie. That was the propaganda that they gave us to keep us from seeing that, we are by far the most rapacious empire the world has ever seen, like by far. But the difference between Trump and Biden, before I go too far afield, is that Trump is personally unhinged in a way that Biden is not. So, we can't have somebody like that in a second term with nothing left to lose, who is also, he's actively a fascist. I've said this before on the show, but the machinery of America is inherently fascist. So there's always going to be fascist shit going on, but it's not always in the hands of a fascist. And like Barack Obama, Joe Biden, these people are not personally fascist. They are neoliberals through and through, right? Which means they kind of believe in, the mythology of American excellence and all that shit, right? They're not, and they want to keep norms intact. They want to keep all the norms intact, right? But, the forms of America are such that they're just going to do damage just by existing, just by doing regular president shit, right? So anyway, I went off on a tangent there, but yeah, please continue.
Well, you saved me the trouble.
Yeah.
I would definitely co-sign the vast majority of everything you just said. I think the idea of the U.S. president, I remember when Trump first got elected and people were like, oh, well, you have to respect the office or blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no.
Yeah, no, the fuck I don't.
Abolish the office. Donald Trump would be horrible if he weren't the U.S. president, but not horrible in a deeply consequential way, right?
Yes.
100%. He took out ads about the Central Park
Exonerated 5, yes.
5, exactly, and those were horrible things for him to say and things for him to do, but the consequence of that was I don't want to say nothing, but he wasn't able to be like, oh yeah, we're just going to kill him. He was able to say, I think we should do that, which is ridiculous, which is absurd and evil, right? But he didn't have the power to make it so. Whereas when you're the president of the United States, you could just be like, yeah, we're gonna kill a bunch of people over there, and then they're dead. Yeah. And no one should have that much power, I think. And
agreed heartily.
I think it really needs to be diffused amongst more people and more nations, and there shouldn't be a power there shouldn't be a power like the United States if it is not controlled by everyone. And that power should never be in the hands of just, obviously not all the power is in the hands of one person, but a really, really grossly large amount is. And, when that's someone like, say, Joe Biden, who I think really thinks he's doing good stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's going to deliberately try to use the office of the presidency to greatly enrich himself. I think he will to some extent, because I think most presidents kind of do to some extent. And, there's definitely
we have legalized
corruption.
Bribery. So we
exactly.
can't even call it corruption in the way we used to, because campaign, they just renamed it campaign contributions. It's not called bribery anymore, but that's what it is.
Right. Exactly. The system itself is corrupt, right? So it doesn't really matter so much. There's a tiny number of politicians who are going to say, no, I'm going to forgo that. And they're going to sometimes be successful, but it's obviously, it creates an unlevel playing field. And, I think a Joe Biden presidency will, America will keep doing awful things throughout the world, and horrible things will keep happening here. It's not like the local police aren't going to go around murdering people. That's not going to stop happening. But, there probably aren't going to be, unmarked federal troops going in places and snatching people off the street. That's probably not going to happen. And there's going to be a better chance to actually make progress on a huge range of issues that right now, there's no trying to make progress on those issues. There's trying to fight against it sliding further in the wrong direction.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I am not terribly okay. I feel that the moment we're in is like the revelation that, okay, everyone always shits on me when I say that like voting is like the absolute bare bones that you can do, right? And one of the things that irritates me about the whole conversation around voting is that, especially, and I mean, it's people who don't realize how much like fucking privilege they have, that they can just show up to politics when it comes time to vote. Meanwhile, other people are in the trenches all the time. And, then the entire thing gets inundated by these fucking scream shouty neolibs who are like, vote or you don't care, or like you're leaving everybody under the bus. And it's like, where the fuck have you been? Black Lives Matter has been happening for a while now, and like I didn't see you. Okay. I haven't seen you posting about it. I haven't seen you talking about it. I haven't seen you at meetings. You haven't joined the DSA, or, there's all these things that you could have been doing in between voting that would have helped us build the power to prevent a lot of this stuff from happening, right? Because like one of the lessons of Bolivia is that, and people are like, oh yeah, they voted for socialism. It's like, okay, they voted for socialism. That's absolutely true. They voted overwhelmingly for it. But the only reason they were able to even get to the point of voting is because the people got in the streets and shut the fucking country down. There was a general strike that was performed that forced the government to have another election. Okay, so it's like, yes, the vote is, I mean, voting, it's like, it's weirdly vital and it's also like weirdly inconsequential, but it's like, and now my theory is you just have to do all of it. You have to do everything, right? And so like people who are like, oh, don't vote because it's all bullshit. I'm like, okay, well, that's not exactly true, because we have joined a game already in progress. And one of the rules of the game is that voting is the mechanism by which we do things. So no matter how bullshit it is, you kind of still have to do it. Otherwise, you're just ceding ground, right? And also like local elections, majorly important, right? Local elections can be decided by like, a couple hundred votes. I think Bernie Sanders famously said he won.
Oh, his first campaign for mayor, right?
Yeah, his first campaign for mayor by like a couple votes, like by a really, really slender margin. So local elections will always, and also just, on the concept of people's governance. What was that? We seem to be experiencing technical difficulties. All right, well, we're going to take a little pause and we'll get right back.
Technical difficulties.
Whatever. It's fine. I mean, it's also Mercury retrograde. There's a, whatever. It is what it is. It is what it is. Okay, so getting back to Amy Coney Barrett and the Supreme Court.